Hello, my name is Lionel Asari, and I would like to officially welcome you to this class, Public Policy and Family Law. I'm going to be your instructor for this online class, and it's going to be an 8-week online class. So in this introductory video, I will be highlighting some few things and some few course expectations for this class. To begin with, um, as the title of the class implies, this is public policy and family law. So in this class, we will be discussing a lot of policies that affect families, whether in a positive way or in a negative way. So that is basically what we are going to be talking about. Like when we talk about public policy or policy, it's simply anything that the government does or does not do which affects the quality of lives of individuals. So we will be looking at the history of public policy, how a policy becomes a policy, some of the processes and the steps that a policy goes through to become a policy. We will also be looking at the politics and the rational process of policy making. We'll be looking at the history of policy. We'll be looking at poverty as an issue, as a policy issue, whether in this class, we'll be examining whether poverty, when we talk about poverty, is it still an issue or is something that has been addressed? So we'll be looking at that. We'll also look at ways to prevent poverty from a policy point of view, like how historically, for instance, in the 1930s, during the Great Depression, Congress came together to pass the Social Security Act, which has been a very landmark policy program that we have where most it has created a lot of things. So we'll be delving deeper into the social insurance and personal responsibility, which is the social security policy that we'll be looking at. We'll also look at disability policy. When you study the history of this country, you realize that there was a time in our country, in this country, where we didn't have any, like individuals who were disabled could be discriminated upon and they didn't have any cause for redress. They couldn't maybe go to the law court and then sue for any form of discrimination because we didn't have a law protecting individuals with disability. So we'll be looking at all of these and then how where we are now when it comes to disability. Like for instance, let me give you an example. In the 1970s, Congress passed what we call the Rehabilitation Act. But the Rehabilitation Act did did some things, to address the issue of individuals with disability, but it only looked at it from the federal point of view, like federal government point of view. And then in the 1990s, Congress passed what we call the Americans with Disability Act. What is the Americans with Disability Act? What did it do? How did it protect individuals with disability? So we'll be looking at that one too. And then, some of the impact of and then, aftermath of the Americans with Disability Act. We'll also be looking at helping needy children and end to welfare. We'll be talking a lot about welfare in this class, like what is welfare? Do you think welfare is a means to end poverty in America? Or when the government provides welfare, is it a means to incentivize people or families to continue to live in poverty? Is welfare even a trap? Do families get trapped in welfare to an extent that they're unable to do things for themselves? We'll be looking at the history of child support, how the government was helping families, needy children, and then how the government gradually began to involve fathers or parents or non-custodial parents into the raising of children. So we'll be looking at that too. Another major topic that we'll be looking at in this class has to do with healthcare. When it comes to health insurance, you realize that it's a very hot topic in this country. And how do Americans insure themselves when they are sick? We will look at that. We will also look at some of the various, like the differences between Medicare and Medicaid, and then whether is it even going to be possible? Is it possible to insure all Americans, with healthcare? Because currently, what we have now, most Americans insure themselves through their employers. So if maybe you have a job, you can get health insurance from the employer. What about individuals who do not have a job? who cannot afford to pay for private health insurance and who do not even qualify for Medicaid. How do we address some of those issues? So it's also another thing that we'll be looking at. We'll also be looking at education policy over the years, all of this. We'll also look at employment policy. When it comes to employment, what are some of the things that the government has done to address the issue of employment, like the Fair Labor Standard Acts, which was passed in 1938 to set the minimum wage and all of those things. Even with the minimum wage, the last time that Congress passed some kind of a minimum wage was in 2009 to address unemployment and all of those issues. We will also be talking about that. We'll also look at challenges of a diverse society and a whole lot of issues that we'll be tackling in this class. So get ready. We will be looking at all of those topics. Let me look at discuss some of the assignments that we'll be having in this class. The major assignment that we'll be having in this class has to do with family analysis of a policy paper. Students will have to pick a topic, and then so we will be talking about family analysis of a policy. Now, all of these assignments, I'll be providing a rubric for the assignments, and I'll be posting them on the model course page. So look out for that. Before I even continue addressing that, the model course page is the only means of communication, where I'll be communicating with you. All assignments due date and everything are going to be posted on the model course page. So try as much as possible, and then always at least once a day, check on the model course page. I've also posted all course materials, including the syllabus for this class, on the model course page, which you should be able to find that. The family analysis of a policy paper, you'll pick a policy and then you write a paper on it, provide a policy fact, how that policy affects families. I'll give you a rubric on what to expect from that paper as we move along in this class. There's also a weekly pop quizzes. Every week there's going to be a pop quiz which ranges between 10 to 15 questions, where you will be answering certain things, questions relating to the topic for that particular week. So there's always going to be a pop quiz. The pop quizzes are between 15 to 20 multiple choice questions. And then there's also weekly discussions and then homework assignments. The homework assignments are also going to be based on the topics that we discuss for each week. So also be looking out for that. And then there will also be some class discussions as well. There's not going to be any major exams for this class. So all the little bit of assignments that you do in this class are not going to culminate to for a final grade for this class. So like, for instance, the weekly pop quizzes that you do, you have to try as much as possible to always complete those weekly pop quizzes. Every assignment for this class will be open on Monday of every week, and the deadline is going to be on Friday, 11:59 of each week. So that is how it's going to be. So on every week, on Monday, I'll open the assignments, like the weekly pop quizzes, and the deadline, the due date is going to be Friday, 11:59 of that particular week. Now, if you try to attempt to answer any of the pop or complete any of the pop quizzes after the deadline date, you will not have access to it. So try as much as possible to complete those pop quizzes before the deadline date. There are a lot of things that I would like to talk about, but as we move on in the course of the semester, this 8 weeks, I'll be providing you with every information. If you have any question, comment, or concern, try as much as possible and send me an email. My email address is stated on the class syllabus. I always respond to emails within 24 hours of receipt. Have a wonderful 8 weeks, and I'll be reading your assignments.